Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we have a treat for you guys. This is going to be an awesome one. So you guys may remember, since we've been building the Skelly 34 early on in the project, we found Barry Skelly, the original builder or owner of this car that did everything we see back in the day. We did a phone call with him. He told me a lot of history about the car, really lit a fire underneath me to get this car on the road. And unfortunately, Barry is not with us anymore and didn't make it to see the car finished. Since his passing, we've been in contact with Mike, one of his son, and Mike, Lisa, and Dylan, Mike's nephew, are coming over today to see the car for the first time. So Mike actually is the reason. He joked with me that his dad sold this car. So when Mike and Lisa's parents were, Barry and his wife were pregnant with Mike, he had to sell the car in 1970. And he's never seen the car. Apparently Lisa sat in the back seat of the car when she was a little girl, but really they never really got to see this car, just old photos. So today, the two of them and Mike's nephew Dylan are going to come by, see the car. We're going to take them for a ride and have a special little surprise for them at the end. So we're going to get our cameras set up, get some GoPros set up, and get their first reaction to the car. This is going to be really fun.
Oh, Dad would be so happy.
Yeah,
This would probably bring a tear to his eye.
What's that?
This would bring a tear to his eye.
Yeah,
just seeing this again. It's really cool.
I can totally see Grandpa driving this.
Me too.
Yeah, it's what I call a gentleman's hot rod. It's not. I have cars that are really loud, fast, rough to ride in. This car is like, I could see this as a car he drove around and everywhere, and that's what he kind of told me. He drove it everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite thing about the video where you're on the phone with him.
Yeah.
It's like, I was talking with my other uncle about it. It sounds like he's like a 20-year-old again. Like,
Yeah. He chipped right. It was
Yeah.
like he perked right up, and he was real chipper, and it was just the and the little details were incredible that he remembered. Oh, does this still have the one thing he says? Does it still have the black body welting on it? And he's really proud that usually they're body colored. So he's really proud that he did black body welting around the whole car when he had to repaint. That was something he told the guy that painted it to do it. And I was like, you remember something so simple as the piece of fabric you put between the body panels? And it's just, little neat stuff like that. So, and the only thing I did that isn't original in the interior, I had a carpet made for it because it had the original rubber floor mat in the front, and then he had put like shag carpet in the back, like literally like 60s.
Oh, God.
And over the years, with that sitting, it collected junk, mold. It was just disgusting. So we pulled it out. But I had, again, thinking of what he would have done, I had this carpet made by a local hot rod upholstery guy. And Joe made this interior, and he didn't want to do it, but I said it needs the white piping around the carpet because it's what they would have done back in the day. So that's the only thing other than the gauges that I added, which they kind of fit really nicely, but I changed a little bit.
This is amazing.
The cigarette lighter, like you sent me one of the interior photos, the cigar lighter, I found that in the car that was sitting there. That's the original cigar lighter. I mean, I asked him about the steering wheel because when I found the car, there was a wood steering wheel on the car that I think Larry had put on, but he didn't like bolt it on. And then when Pete and I were digging through the car, we found the steering wheel like on the floor under some junk. And I looked at him like, this has to be the wheel. It's white. And then when I talked to him on the phone, I said, did you have a little 3-spoke, steering wheel? Oh yeah, I had a little 3-spoke, had the holes or whatever. He like identified the wheel. I'm like, that's it, I found it. I found the tachometer that's clamped on to the steering column. And in the old photos you sent me, I assumed, because I found it on the ground somewhere or in a box, I assumed in the old photos you sent me, there was the tack. And I was already in the process of wiring it up and putting it on. I'm like, I actually had the tack on the other side of the steering column because you can put it either way. And then he sent me those photos, and I'm like, it was on the right side, down low, and I had it like up higher. I'm like, all right, we'll rotate it and make it look how it was.
This is unbelievable.
But
Can't you imagine him and mom riding around?
That's what I was thinking. And like all the
Grandma?
pictures of when they were in their 20s of him like showing off grandma like on his other
Uh-huh.
cars, like I can totally,
yeah,
I can see
I mean,
it.
this car is just had to really stand out back in its day to have a bright red Corvette red paint job. I mean, this car now, when I drive it, my neighborhood all knows I have antique cars, so I'm always driving around antique cars. But when I first started taking this thing out, like we have a community center next door here, and they do Meals for Wheels every day at lunchtime. And when I would pull the car out of the shop, put it out there when I got it running, they were like, everyone was losing their minds. And I mean, I pull cars out, neat cars all the time, and they're like, it's just something about this car and the red paint that just makes it. Because I can't imagine back in the 60s, this thing had to just be, you know, people would break their necks seeing it drive by because of how, you know, it's,
That was grandpa.
yeah.
I mean, even until he passed, every car I've ever known him to drive has been bright red.
Really?
Whether it was a van or his Kia, like it's
So red was his
always-
color.
Red was his
Yeah,
color.
yeah.
That's
Red.
so cool. Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, it's, the paint came up pretty good. You can actually see, well, when we pull it outside, I'll let you guys see, but the doors, he polished this car so much that you can actually see through the paint in the doors and stuff. Like the paint's so thin, you can actually see like the primer spots, and you could see some of the white because it was painted white before. Through the paint, when you're in direct sunlight, you can actually see through the paint in the doors and see that there's like, it's that thin. So he probably hand polished this thing so many times that the paint, every time he polished a car, he'd take a little bit of paint off. So some of those spots he was polishing, he probably polished it so much that the paint, when we buffed it, it was like, we can't buff this thing ever with a machine ever again because the paint's too thin. It'll start cutting through. But it's kind of crazy.
I'm still dumbfounded that we're actually standing here looking at it
I
in
know.
person. I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
My heart is full.
So this is
Oh
the
my
garage.
goodness.
That's the 34 in there.
Wow.
And that's after it was cleaned a little bit
That's
too.
after it was cleaned a little. It's behind all this. And this
So
is
it truly was a find.
Oh yeah, they had to literally dig it out. So this is after they cleaned out that you could see the car existed.
I can't even imagine just like the feeling of finding that.
Oh yeah. And then this is, you could see the windshield and stuff was out of it on it. So yeah, this is her notes. It was titled and it was issued in 4/24 of 70 is when Larry got it. The title went through PA and Larry owned it. So he bought it, I'm guessing in April of 70. So it might have been 69 when he sold it and it sat on the lot for a little while, I'm not sure. There's another shot of, that's so cool. Taken in 70, here you go. So there, that's his owner's card that we found
Oh my
in the back
gosh.
seat. And this is the place that he owes York. Remember it says something Stars, Quality Cars,
Eater Stars.
Eater Stars
Eater Stars.
in York.
Joe Stars.
It's on Market
Yeah.
Street.
Remember Joe Stars?
Yeah.
It's on Market Street in York.
Here, let me lay it down. 'Cause
But yeah, that's what we found in the back seat on the shag carpet was that.
The shag carpet.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that was, you said he was in Hanover, so that was when it was,
Centennial Avenue.
That's where they lived when I was born, and then not long after I was born, they moved
wow.
to where.
Commonwealth, this is dated 65.
A year before I was born.
So he sold it later on, so this was probably just a fluke. It was just,
Right.
you know, under the seat, or, I mean, we were taking everything out of the car and we found it. you know.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, it was, go ahead.
I'm Lisa Mulroy, and Barry Skelly was my dad.
I'm Mike Skelly, and I am number 2 in the family, and the reason why our dad got rid of the car.
I'm Dylan Mulroy, and I am Barry's grandson.
So, do you guys have any like early memories? I mean, it seems like all three of you have early memories of hearing about the car. But specifically, I'd like to know, Mike, like, do you remember because the car was gone. You said 69 you were?
I was born in '69, yeah.
So the car was sold bought in 70. So somewhere in there, do you remember when you were a kid, like?
I just remember Dad talking about it and showing pictures and how cool it was, and and you could always tell in his voice that he was disappointed that he had to get rid of it, and but yeah, it was a lot of memories, even though we never got to see the car.
Yeah, but he had old photos that he was sharing of the car.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you have any early memories about?
I just seeing pictures of me and the old car seat in the back. Or pictures of that, and I remember stories from my aunts and mom and dad talking
About it. He was like the coolest kid on the block kind of thing, rolling around with it. So generations down.
So, like I was saying earlier, like I mostly have only ever heard about the car. Like I hadn't even seen pictures of it. Like I didn't know what it looked like until we started digging through his stuff and the picture I sent you.
Yeah.
He always talked about the cherry red hot rod. So
That's cool.
that's what I know of it.
Yeah, that's kind of neat because we were trying to think of a name for the car originally. We usually name these to kind of keep track of them. And if I knew it was Cherry Red Hot Rod, I probably would have used Cherry 34 or something like that. But so that's cool. Now he mentioned to me about he used to set up with the vintage toy thing. Can you go over like what his passion was in that? So he was into or what his business was, I guess you should say.
It was a passion too. Absolutely.
I took a guess, but I kind of already knew
No,
the
you were
answer.
right.
No, it all started back in the mid '60s when he had Racer-Rama, when it was a slot car track.
Okay.
They ran 1/32 scale slot cars, and they had a downstairs which had the big track, and they had an upstairs which was a smaller track. So they had two tracks. That kind of, don't know exactly why that kind of faded out of the picture, but it eventually turned into a hobby shop where you could get anything from crafts to bottle rockets to remote control cars, trains, model kits, skateboards, you name it. I mean, it was there. I mean, that was just talking to everybody that I know. We mentioned Racer-Rama, and it's like, oh my God, your dad owned Racer-Rama. It's like, yeah, it's like, and it just brings back a lot of good memories. And then from that, they actually sold the shopping center, and they were gonna double his rent and cut the store in half. So he decided not to renew his lease. And I think from that point, towards the end of Racer-Rama is when he started getting into other things, like the die-cast trucks and the tin toys, and and that just led to a big mess where we are now.
Yeah, you could tell, like I said, I kind of gathered just me being in this stuff too. It's an obsession, so it becomes that. So
It was.
Yeah, for sure.
So now also a little bit, your dad was involved in Lincoln Speedway, that's how we basically found him. So he was, how long, he was a photographer there and involved in the Speedway since, he told me a little bit, but.
Almost since the very beginning, when the Speedway opened, he got a job with King's Photos. We actually found a jacket in the garage, and unfortunately the one sleeve was eaten away a little bit, but it was King's Photography. With the old stitching like you mentioned earlier, he started with King's, shooting for them, and then once he retired, Dad took over and pretty much had it for up until this year.
Wow, that's very cool. So I don't know if you guys know that part of the story, but, or you watched the video obviously, but he told me that he found this car from the flagman at the Lincoln Speedway when it was white. So he bought it from one of the guys that did the flagging at the Speedway, and that's how he found the car. And then it was white already with I think a flathead at that point, and then so the car has history with the Speedway from way back when, which is really, really neat.
And that's the first we knew about that when you mentioned it, because we didn't know it came from a friend from the Speedway.
Really?
No.
So what was your first impression, or what do you guys think of the car now you saw it? Is it in good a shape as you thought, or worse, or
better than?
Really?
He'd be so happy.
He would be so happy.
That's cool.
Like we said earlier when we first got here, I guarantee he would have cried.
Yeah.
Guarantee he would have cried.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, but I was always interested to see because you guys never really saw it. So is it better? Is it worse? Or
No,
stuff like
it's
that.
exceeded all expectations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, we found out just now. We're talking. The car lived super. So we're not going to obviously give Larry's home address away, but where Larry lived in Spring Grove, where we found this car, was only
Probably less
Two,
than
3 blocks
miles.
away.
Easy.
Not even a mile. If you
Bicycle
walked.
right away.
Yeah,
bicycle,
really.
bicycle right away.
Yeah.
So that whole time Barry was living only a mile or
Yeah.
less from where the car was stored.
Yeah.
That's
wild.
crazy.
I wonder if their paths have ever crossed in all the car stuff.
What, him and Larry? They
Yeah.
had to have.
Yeah.
I would think so because Larry was involved in the car hobby. More than likely, he went to the track at some point in his life.
You mentioned
know.
Carlisle and Dad.
Yeah,
And Hershey.
yeah. So he
I
did
just wonder.
Oh yeah.
he did the Carlisle and Hershey
Can you
thing.
imagine
Yeah.
if
Forever.
like at one point Grandpa was in that garage and just never saw it?
I don't think Larry was pretty secretive, so even his family didn't know what he had, which is
Right.
crazy. Like even his own brother didn't know he had so many cars, but he was. A lot of people knew him from the swap meets, and Larry collected toys. He had an incredible Matchbox and whatever
Had to
collection.
have connected.
So I
Yeah.
bet that he went to Barry's store and bought items because they had a whole entire portion of an auction that was just toy cars and Matchboxes and
Wow.
different things like that. So model cars, little put together paint model cars. So
Maybe they're up there looking down together.
yeah, hopefully they're high fiving that the car's driving again, and
Exactly.
So that's really cool. So well, thank you guys. Is there anything you want to say about the car or about anything?
Just thank you for letting us come
Oh, of
because
course.
my heart is full.
I'm glad.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
this definitely completes the cycle of the car and the story and getting you guys to see it. So
You did it justice, that's for sure.
that's the best compliment I can ever get with any of these old hot rods. If I did it justice, I did it right. It doesn't. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now I'm getting teary-eyed. So we have a huge fan base.
Oh,
And
wow.
At Carlisle, one of our viewers, Susan, so let me show you guys. We showed it in one of our videos. Susan, this is a one of one. She drew this of the car, and I want to give it to you
Wow.
guys.
That's amazing.
Oh,
That
wow.
is amazing.
So Susan gave it to me because her and her husband came and bought some parts for me, and she was enamored with the car, and she took some photos, and she's an artist. So she surprised me at Carlisle and gave me this
Wow.
drawing framed. And I actually checked with her. I said, she gave it to me. I said, it's amazing. I said, well, I have the family coming like next week. Would you mind? She said, oh, I don't mind. She's like, I just love the car and wanted to do a drawing. So
That is amazing.
this is for you guys. I want to give it to you. This is the
Thank you.
original. And it's all framed and everything. So thank you to Susan
That
for
is
doing that.
absolutely beautiful.
But
That's amazing.
I thought that was a neat thing that you guys can
Oh my gosh,
keep.
yes.
Yes. It needs to be on one of your walls you can look
Yes.
at all the time.
Very cool. Very
That's,
neat.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we were talking about doing prints of it, but I was like, it needs to be the one-on-one, needs to be with you guys. That's it. No, nobody else has it. So that was
Wow.
my gift for you guys.
Thank you.
No problem.
Wow.
This is really cool. So we'll try and keep that's enough tears for one
Yeah.
for now.
Wow.
So the last thing I have is, do you guys want to take a ride in it?
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
awesome.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, so whoever wants to sit in the back. Seats all forward. And those are actually the red seat belts we found in the back of it. So we actually have the seat belts. Well, these are add-ons. We probably bought these from the catalog because they didn't have them originally. So we found them in the back. They usually use them with their Oh my God, kind of small, right? Literally my favorite thing on the planet is the first time I take a car like this out for a drive. There's no better feeling than the first time you drive a car like this on the road. You pulled it out of a barn or a garage. The car's a great runner. I didn't do anything engine-wise. We just did some tune-up stuff to it, put another carburetor on it.
And I can just picture him and Grandma cruising around Spring
too.
Grove and York.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this thing had to be the bee's knees back in the day.
Like your grandpa would never, yeah. For sure.
So it's a cruiser. It's not blazingly fast, but it's just fast enough to make a, the
Heads turn.
yeah.
This is too cool.
My favorite part of your phone call with him is he said something along the lines when you talked about the engine. Oh, it used to purr like a kitten.
Yeah.
Like that was just him.
It really was a good motor. That thing, it just purred like a kitten.
And this engine is the quietest. I mean, after we got it running, until it got good oil pressure and everything, we got it running and all the oil changed. Now this thing's so quiet at idle, it's insane. I actually can't. Sometimes I think it stalls at idle when it's warmed up, because there's a little bit of like the exhaust gets so quiet. I'm like, whoa, did this thing just stall on me? So it runs so quiet, so smooth. It's like a, especially for sitting for 50 years, it's incredible that it. The only thing I'll say is it steers hard because he put this little tiny steering wheel on it. The steering wheel is supposed to be like this in this thing. So with no power steering and this little steering wheel, it's a pain in the butt to drive. Or not drive, but parallel parking is not something I'd want to do in it. But it's got a great sound. It's just a.
It does have a great sound.
It's so good.
It was probably a tiny bit quieter when he had it. He had straight through mufflers on it, so it was probably like a hair quieter, but at idle it probably sounds the same. It's just, I gave it a little more attitude is all I did. And these cars also have a neat thing is they have the cowl vent, so if you want your air conditioning on, you open the cowl vent.
Wow, yeah.
You feel that, how much it comes through?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I found most of the stuff in the car. This cowl vent was missing, and we found it in a paper bag in the garage. And I was really bummed because when I agreed to buy the car, I bought it as is, and we didn't have that panel. I'm like, man, how am I going to match the paint if we don't find that outside panel, that cowl vent? And then we luckily found it.
This is too cool. This is awesome.
Most people in my town know me because they always see me driving like antique cars like this. So this is like my loop I always do when I'm first getting them on the road or whatever.
This is awesome. Never forget this.
Well, the brakes aren't very good in these things, so he wasn't stopping fast, but definitely when he
I probably got dumped down.
Yeah.
A couple times.
well, probably when he got on it, because it's got some punch to it, and probably you were definitely rocking around. And these seats are the springs are really bouncy in them, so I could see you, and as a kid, the baby seat just bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, I can see some other bouncing too.
that might have been.
I'm just wondering if I was conceived in this car.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't know. This
I
seat's
put
big
mine
enough.
on at this point.
The back seat is big enough, for that's for
Just
sure.
like the pride and joy he had in this car and the stories
I know car guys, and that's probably something that, especially back in the 50s and 60s, I mean, that's what couples were doing. You go to the drive-in or you go parking, yeah. So, and that's why you had this was a better car for picking up chicks because you had a back seat. The guys had roadsters and 3-window coupes. You didn't have or coupes in general, you didn't have a back seat.
That's probably why you got this car, because it had a huge back seat.
Yep. That's funny.
So what'd you think?
Oh my God. That was so awesome.
Thank you.
That was
That
so
was
awesome.
amazing.
That was amazing. Never forget it.
I didn't think you guys would say no when I asked. Oh man.
Wow.
All right, so the Skelly family just left, and man, what an awesome visit. It was really, really awesome to have Mike, Lisa, and Dylan stop by to see the car and just get kind of the feedback from part of the Skelly family on what they thought of the car. It really, really makes my heart full to hear them say that they really approved of how I did the car and said that I did the car justice. For me, that is, you can't get any better. I mean, this is kind of a great ending for us to the story of finding this car and putting it back on the road, is we got to let them see it and get their approval of what they thought of the car, and that really makes me happy. So going forward, really what I plan on doing with this car is just driving it. I'm going to do what it's meant to do. Not sit in the garage and get forgotten. This thing's going to get driven, enjoyed, and get out there in the world and just make me happy and make people that see this old car happy, which is really awesome. And I know I can't wait. Unfortunately, it's fall, and I'm only got probably another month or so of driving it left. But in the spring and the summer, you know that I'm going to be driving the heck out of this thing and enjoying it, which is going to be super cool. So that's pretty much it for the series of this car. We're wrapped up. I couldn't ask for a better ending to this series. So we really appreciate anybody that's followed along from the day we pulled this out, giving me your feedback and support of putting this car together throughout this whole spring, summer, and into a little bit into the fall. It's been really awesome to kind of share this journey with you guys, and it really lights a fire, and moments like this, meeting with the Skelly family, remind me that what we're doing with this channel of spreading the history, the love of old hot rods, we're on the right path. So I can't say enough. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Catch you later.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that was my pride and joy.